Hey guys, I just want to welcome you back to my podcast. We're going to be continuing with our last podcast that I had with my wife, Taryn. Taryn, hello.
Hello.
We didn't get to many questions last time because we spoke so much. The last 2 weeks have been busy. I've been recording and we've been filming, and I'm excited to say that I'm launching a project on the 27th of September. So please make sure that you check on all digital platforms to download the new album that I've done. It's some of the top Christian songs that are popular in churches right now. So I decided to go to the piano and record an intimate setup of worship. So I chose some songs that we sing in our church and that are on the CCLI top 10. And I'm excited for everyone to hear that. But welcome, Taryn.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me.
So there are a few questions that people asked, and I just need to get my phone so I can read them. When we did the last podcast, we were speaking so much about our testimony, and it was important because people wanted to hear where we came from and what God did in our lives and how we started on our journey of faith. But there were some interesting conversations that we actually missed, that we never got to. So I want to get straight into the first question because we only have about an hour and a half. The first question asked, can you explain how you got saved, Pastor Taryn?
Well, firstly, I got saved by just accepting Jesus into my heart. No, jokes aside, that's really the truth. But how I started, because I didn't come from a home that had a relationship with God, but we always believed in God. And sometimes I feel that there's this concept outside that most people believe they're Christians, but have never actually gone through the point of having a relationship with God. And I think that we can get a little bit lost with that concept of, okay, God is there, but I don't even think that people realize they don't have a relationship with him. And I was one of those people. And it started off with every time someone would speak about God, I would get this feeling. And I don't want to make it like the spiritual bubble and all, super spiritual, but I would just get this feeling. And it just so happened that people were talking to me about God more and more often. And my cousin had gone to a church, and she kept inviting me, and for like 2 years she kept inviting me, and I actually decided to go to shut my cousin up. So I decided that it's about time. She would ask me every Saturday, every Sunday, every weekend. I was one of those people that I had someone not giving up on me. Although I had heard about God from so many people, to me, I had this relationship with God, and to me, I'd say my gentle Jesus prayers, and I would every night, even if I had something to drink, I would still pray, and just within, like, in my heart. And it was never anything. It wasn't a relationship prayer. It was just a rehearsed prayer that we were taught as little kids, and so I decided to go with, and I had the privilege of going to the previous ministry. I've only ever been into two, and it was such an honor because the day I went in there, the senior pastor of the church was preaching, and that sermon changed my life. And the way seeing his relationship and the way he spoke about God, and I just knew that I wanted whatever this man had, and the light that he shined, I wanted a part of it, and I wanted that thing that he was talking about. So he did an altar call, and I went up, and this man came and spoke to me at that point, and he. I don't know if I can say his name, if that was Pastor Harold Weitz, and what a light, it is a man with such a great relationship with God that if you meet him, you know that you've met someone that's got a great relationship with him. And that truly was the day I got saved, was the day I saw him preach for the first time, and knowing and seeing his relationship with God, that made me, when he did the altar call, I didn't want to miss out. So I went forward, and obviously it was all these tears, and I truly didn't understand what was going on. And from the stage, he spoke to me and he said, "Young lady, you've cried lots of tears of sadness, and from this moment, your life will be turned 180 degrees. You've heard what I've said." And, true to that word, my life turned around 180 degrees. I as I said, it was a process when I first got saved, and I didn't go get saved and I did everything the right way. I was actually quite the opposite. But I never left. I never let go of what God did. From that day, I wanted the relationship, and yes, I did go out and party, and yes, I still did things. But my relationship and this thing that I wanted to form, and I wanted to experience God that way. I didn't want to let go of that. So that's the thing that held me going back. And also the fact that I created relationship inside the church. And that was what was so important, is that, who you surround yourself with is who you become. So I had the privilege of being surrounded by leaders and people that wanted me to grow. And to this day, we get taught who you surround yourself with will be who you become. But I am the typical case of, you never give up on asking someone. You never give up on telling someone about Jesus, or you never give up on just trying. But also putting your money where your mouth is that be the person that they need, be the person that they need to see. Because if I didn't have people around me, and at the time leaders that really spoke or talked the talk, I wouldn't be here today.
I also think for me, what you've just said is actually important, is the association. Because when I got saved, it wasn't a thing of, oh, I had friends while I got saved and they went with me to church and they enjoyed Jesus. No, I remember when I was driving, I had just gotten saved and I had an encounter with God that I did. And I remember playing a song by Hillsong called One Way. One way, Jesus, you're the only one that I could live for. And the person that was sitting in my car was a person that I was friends with in school. And we were driving and I played the song to her just to check her response. And she laughed at me in my face. And she put the radio down and she got out the car. And I think from that day, she just faded and we never ever had relationship again. But, she had her time with the Lord and she had to encounter God for herself.
Yes.
But that's just so important in the beginning phases of your walk with Christ. That thing of association is very important, because the people around you either pull you down,
yes,
or they lift you up. And so for me, I had to just trust God that I would make a whole new friendship group, because when I came to church, I never knew anyone.
Yeah.
And this is something that I want to say as well, is that, getting saved, I many times went to church and I put my hand up for the altar call. I went with my sister to church, like I spoke in the previous podcast. She dragged me to church and I'm forever grateful for that. But it never became a revelation for me. It wasn't a thing where I put my hand up, well, not a revelation, a heart change, if that makes sense. I never in my heart went, okay, Jesus, I need you. I need to get saved. I had a hangover and I put my hand up and I was like, Lord, I'm going to make my sister happy and just put my hand up for this altar call.
But it's what you wanted, actually.
But secretly, my heart was yearning,
Yes.
And it was a process until the day I had the encounter that I did with the Lord in E-Group, and my whole life changed from that point. And I again want to say to people that are listening is that sometimes it is a process, like we spoke previously. It is a process, like Pastor Taryn went through. You can have an encounter with the Lord, and you will still need to crucify your flesh and go through things. And it's not a bad thing. I want to say this is when the question was asked about how you got saved, it's also encountering God outside of religion. Because I came from religion. And even, Pastor Taryn and I'm calling you pastor because it was someone in the church that asked. Even coming from where I came from, it was a Catholic background. It was very religious, so to say, where it was about doing certain protocols to make you right with the Lord.
Yes.
And where we even recently came to the revelation and the teachings that we've been receiving from the ministry that we're involved with, Encounter Church, is that there's nothing that you can do that can make God love you less. And sometimes it's difficult for people to actually understand that. Having encountered people the last couple of months, to say, and having them understand that there's nothing you can do. There's 100%. Nothing you need to do more of that will make God go, okay, I love you more because you've done this.
And you don't have to be a certain way. So you don't have to come in and you don't have to be great. I'll come back to church. I just need to get myself right. You don't need to. You don't need to get yourself right. That's why, what the church is there for, or that's what God is there for. Let's take the church out of it and say that's what God is for.
That's right.
Is that He's there to heal the brokenhearted and bandage up the wounds. He's there. He died so that we could. He loved so that we could. And we forget about that. That He never did it so that He could wait on us to become better.
Yeah.
He did it so that we could. And, you don't have to wait until you've stopped drinking to come to him. You don't have to wait
100%.
for you to get your mind right, out of burnout. You don't have to wait for yourself you don't have to go, okay, here's these Christians, they're in those little Christian bubbles, and I'm not going to be part of it. I don't want to be uncool like that. Some of the coolest people I've come to know are people that know God, but have relationship with him. And having relationship with him is a totally different thing. You can act the part, but have no relationship with him. I mean, if I call you, how do you know it's me? Is you know my voice.
Yeah.
You've spent time with me. You've heard me. You've spent, I don't know how many years it is now. I mean,
Very long. She's 16, 17 years.
I can't do the math. My math ain't mathing. But I know girls, I'm supposed to know, but I don't. Because to me, it was just like, this is going to be my life. So I don't have to count every date. I can't remember the dates, actually. I just know I went in anniversary. But anyway, this is one thing. The main thing that I realized is that, and I want to tell you that, I've been saved 20 odd years around there. And I've only come to realize in the last little while that God truly just loves me for me. And he created me to be me. He never created me to put me in somewhere else, but he will bring me people that will mentor me and grow me and discipline me and love me and be there to shape me into a better me. And anybody that doesn't do that is outside of God's will for you, irrespective of what you think.
So
there
true.
will be times and seasons of people coming and shaping you. And what seems like a discipline but if people are coming to you and saying, get up, come on, you got to step up one more time. It feels like a discipline when you're in a dry place, but it's not. It's a hand. And, if you can view your God as a good father, as someone that actually wants the best for you, he's not asking you to become a different person, because when you've got a relationship with him, he will shape and form you without you even knowing it. And, Grace says that we don't have to do anything to get his love. But once you've experienced his love, there is nothing that you will want more than to get to know him better and to get to know his voice better. There's nothing. And yes, there is times, and let me not even lie to you, that you are not going to want to read the word, and that you'll feel angry with God, and that you won't want to be. But the difference is to stand up again and try, because faith is not feeling. Faith is making a decision to do, and saying, God, I trust you more than I don't know how I got to this point on asking how I got saved.
What you've just said is actually so powerful. We've had so many discussions in the last probably 3 months even, where people have spoken to us about feeling like God is not there, feeling like God has abandoned them, feeling like the promises that God has over a person's life is never going to come to fruition. And I think the thing that you and I have had to learn very quickly is, regardless of what we feel, it doesn't determine who God is.
You see, sorry, I'm interrupting you again, because I always say I have nothing to say and then I speak too much. Is one mistake that we make is that is responsibility. Is that God gives you this thing, and he's not going to drop it in your lap.
Yeah.
There's a responsibility to stand up and do, because he can work through you that way. And when the problem is with a lot of people is they think God is responsible to sort out a mess that they have created.
So
now,
true.
God does say that he will turn everything out for the better good. But who's to say that God shouldn't teach you a lesson through what you're going through? Because I believe that God wants to have your character in the best place, in what he's got for you. Because when your character is in the right place, you will impact more people with a clear heart for him and not for your
That's
stage. And it's never, as much as we sometimes forget it, it's actually never about us.
She's saying something that's so true, and we probably are going off this subject, but it's obviously leading into that direction. But if I had to tell you, the people, this is what I think Christians have a problem with, is not taking responsibility for the mistakes and then blaming God for those mistakes. We often do that. We often go, God,
I've
why?
done it.
Yes, we're all guilty.
Yeah.
God, why? Why are you not taking me out of this mess? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing X, Y, and Z? If I had to tell you the mistakes that I've made over, I make mistakes every day of my life.
Yeah.
People think that we're in ministry and that we're pastors or we've got a platform that we're perfect. We're not. Anyone that says to you that they're perfect and they don't make mistakes is lying, and they've got things hidden in their cupboards. But I made mistakes. I mean, the result of us losing everything in 2015 wasn't just because of warfare, because we easily blame warfare for consequences that we don't want to take responsibility for. And I had to take responsibility for the fact that I made bad financial decisions, got us into debt as a family, and thank God He restored and He blessed and He promoted. But I could have easily said, Lord, I hate you because you allowed this to happen. No, I caused so much that I had to face the consequences for. I had to sort out. And if I never did that, or if I never went through that specific season, what God has for Taryn and I today, and certain things that have happened in our lives and are happening in our lives, we wouldn't have been able to, or I wouldn't have been able to sustain that promise today, or keep that thing specifically.
I don't think you would have had at the times that we did lose things, I sat there and I'd cry before God because, to me, I was like, God, I told Him. But I also realized that you wouldn't be who you are today without that.
Yeah.
So, us in it, you feel like, God, what are you doing? Where are you? But, the word says, you don't know what I'm doing right now, but you will someday. And we know now why we went through those tests.
And you know what? We can always say, Romans 8 verse 28, that God really does work things for the better good. I said to Taryn this week, regardless of anything bad happening in our lives, and even looking back in the past of the bad that happened, we can really testify today and say that the bad, He still worked out for the good.
100%, yeah.
And regardless if we never understood what He was doing in the bad, He worked the bad out for our good.
Even just going like, okay, Lord, I've made a wrong decision. I don't know if I've done the right thing. You know what's so amazing about God is that it doesn't matter how we've made the wrong choice. God says He'll just cut. A man can make plans for his life, but now I'm messing that up so bad. But He'll make your path straight.
Yes.
And so when we trust Him, and we've even made a mistake because it is human to err, but the thing we find in Christ is that we have hope, and hope anchors your soul. So even when you've made the mistake, you've got an anchor and you've got a hope. It means that tomorrow you can get up again because His mercies are new every single day.
That's right.
Every single day gives you the opportunity for something brand new to happen. And for you to be a brand new person. His mercies are on you. It's not on your situation. It's on you. So that means that He's giving you the opportunity to change in the situation.
Yes.
To have a better attitude. To allow God to. When you allow God to, He will.
Before we spend too much time on question number 1, we're going to move over to question number 2. Did you both feel called to ministry?
Sure. That's actually a difficult one to answer because, if you didn't know God and have a relationship with Him, I knew there was something from a little girl that I would do. I always had a heart and made sure I really cared about people, and I'd get really affected if someone else was hurt. And luckily I've got both my parents are pretty caring. They're caring people and dynamic. My dad is, like I would say, my mom is more an introverted person, but if you've been around my mother, you know that she's a person that gives an unconditional, unjudgmental love. But my father is someone that networks and always shows he cares to everybody. He can hear via the grapevine. My dad is the person that will pick up the phone. He will find out in the room he's very good at networking, but he networks in a way that you feel like he cares. So what has that got to do with ministry? Truth be told, when you grow up in a home that is not, I would say, relationship based.
Yeah.
It's very hard to say that I knew I was called to full-time ministry. But the minute I got saved, I knew that I would do something.
Yeah.
See, full-time ministry didn't look like working at a church for me. Full-time ministry meant I'd be serving God in some way, in the sense of, when I first got saved, we would go and I found out about a nursery school. I organized a outreach to this nursery school, and we got new toilets for them. We got new windows. We got pop sponsored for a year every month. We got a new jungle gym and little things like that. So I knew full-time ministry to be that. It wasn't necessarily that I used to sit and dream and think, okay, one day I'd preach, or one day I'd speak, or one day I'd impact people that way. But to me, I never thought I had to work at a church for that. When we were in youth together, we were always like, oh, we want to be the next part of the youth, hired and stuff. But when we started connecting, I knew, and this is going to sound so cliche and like I've rehearsed and it's a perfect thing to say, but truly I don't care what other people think, because I know that when I started dating Alan and I knew that I was going to marry Alan, I knew that I would give up anything for him to get to where he needed to be. And yes, was it a long road? Because there was insecurities in us that I just wish we were mentored stronger from the get-go.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we would be totally different. If we had people that were just saying, this is wrong, this is where you need to grow.
Yeah.
This, that's why where we are today, it might be harder. And we can see in other people. So, Pastor Alan and I, or I'm just going to call you Alan today. And I made the choice that when we've got people around us, we would keep them in our company and we would be honest about where they're at, and not just create, this is a point form on what a leader should look like, but also create the best them.
Yeah, that's right.
And whatever that would be. And sometimes it's walking for years with someone, but sometimes it's a month where you can just say to someone, hey, read this book, do this, or whatever. But also, so to me, that has always been full-time ministry, is doing something for God. It never looked like working church. Am I working for a church right now? Yes. But I also realized that ministry is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And did I know I was always going to be in that lifestyle? Once I had accepted Jesus into my heart, yes. I knew that I would be in that lifestyle for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It also cost me. It cost me losing a lot of friends. It cost me a lot. It cost me my life. But did I gain life? 100%. I gained. And, luckily, I still have the privilege of messaging, like the friend I spoke to. She messaged me and she watched the podcast and she was having a good giggle. And it was a privilege to hear that, because that is still someone I deeply care about. Even though we are maybe not close, she's someone I deeply care about, and we can still talk. So even though the cost is there. So this is what I would say, is that I think people, and this is something that we are privileged to hear a lot in the ministry now, is that, ministry isn't preaching on a stage or working at a church.
Yeah.
Because when you work at a church, you will fulfill a job. You have more chance of impacting more people being out in the workforce than you will be working at a church.
That's right.
Because those are the people that need to hear it. As much as we need to feed the church, grow the church, and be the hospital for the brokenhearted, or whatever you want to call it, be the nurses. He's the doctor. Being out there is the people that need to hear it.
Yeah.
And the people that need to hear it need to hear, like, God is not expecting you to become a professor and become, something that is just fake. He's actually just wanting a relationship with you, whatever that relationship looks like to you right now. Just start. Just start. So that's what ministry is to me.
It's very good. I think for me, for just to maybe ease some people, when you get saved, you sometimes don't know until the point that you get saved that, hey, this is actually what you want to do.
Yes,
because you've never
100%.
encountered God before.
Yes.
But for me, obviously, singing before getting saved and being
some
musical.
of us are privileged enough to have a talent.
You can sing though. No, I'm joking. But for me, I was singing my whole life, so
funny.
I always knew that music would be a part of my future.
I mean, if it wasn't a part of your future, you would be stupid.
Exactly. So I got saved, and I knew that I wanted to obviously sing in a church, because I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know that there was praise and worship teams. To me, singing in church was singing with a choir of grannies and singing hallelujah to the Lord. So I never knew that praise and worship was actually so amazing. I never knew that until our previous ministry that we were at. I never knew that there was a band in a church. I never knew that they had
could actually sound good.
Vocalists that sound good, that can sing harmonies, that can actually play an instrument.
And you could actually be passionate about it, and God could use it.
Yes.
Yes.
So for me, I always knew that music would be a part of my future. when it comes to pastoring people and full-time ministry, I've always known since the day that I got saved that this is what will be my future. I always knew that I would pastor people. I always knew that we would shepherd people, so to say. We would be in ministry. I always knew. You know, some people don't know until you get saved. The day I got saved, I just knew I want this. This is what I want. You know, we joke about our days in the youth, and it really is a joke, because all we wanted to do was be employed by the church. It was just the thing that we wanted. And
we were so passionate about being together. The youth that we were first in, we were so passionate about being together. And that was something that the youth pastor really created. And it was something so powerful. And it's something I really learned from, is that he created that we wanted to be together. Like if there was 5 minutes we could be together, we'd be together. We'd play rugby. We'd go, you know, it'd be so cold and you couldn't go inside McDonald's. And after youth, it would be like 11 o'clock at night, be freezing. It would be so cold. And we wouldn't be dressed warm enough. And we'd all go climb into the, what is that?
Slides at McDonald's.
The slides and the playground, the play jungle gym or whatever you want to call it at McDonald's. And we'd be laying, eating burgers there because it was so cold. It was the warmest place we could do, and we'd lie close to each other just so that we could spend that extra time together. And it was so exciting, and that impacted me in a lot of ways, because it was something that I realized you could always be there. You could always create, and it's up to you to be the person that, you know, ministry looks like sharing Jesus with someone.
Yeah.
And the best way to share Jesus with someone is to share your life, you know, and if you can explain to people, if you can be raw and honest about how much you mess up and how much you fall, because yes, me falling doesn't look like me going drinking. I don't have that desire. You know, did I drink before? Yes. But was it easy for me to give up? Yes. It wasn't a thing. You know, I still slip up. I still mess up. But, you know, to me, it's about standing up and trying again and looking to God on how you can change, because God will bring every situation. And even if it's an injustice to you, if someone is doing things that are an injustice to you, God will bring justice out of it. And part of that justice is changing your character.
That's so true.
And that's something I've had to learn, especially the last 2 years of my life. And it feel that, you know, for a lot of people, oh, they've learned so many lessons. No, you will always learn lessons. God will always take you through something more. You know, God will always, the minute you reach the closest to perfection, I believe it comes to take you. That is not biblical. That is Taryn's opinion. And I mean, what does perfect look like? The only example we have is Christ. So we can only strive for that. And when you have a relationship with him, that you want to be better, you want to do, and, you know, in the times that you don't feel him, you've got enough knowledge to carry on, to know that there's an outcome.
100%. I think something that also kept us in the beginning of our beginning of being involved with ministry, is that we had the desire to learn. We immediately, I don't know about you, I think did it as well. I went immediately, I got saved. 2 months
Bible
later,
college.
I went into Bible college.
Same.
I didn't know what I was signing up for, but 4 years later, we do the Bible college, we do the counseling school.
Yes.
And we had a zeal and a passion to make sure that we continue growing.
Did the Hebrew, and we couldn't, I still don't remember anything.
Yeah, Greek and Hebrew.
I know, I mean, it's so interesting, but
But we always had that. There was always a passion for more of God.
Yes.
We surrounded ourselves with people that had that same passion, that same zeal. And I'm not talking about not reaching out to people that don't know God, because that's important. You know, our pastor said yesterday in a sermon, Prophet Leon Dupree, he said, there's something wrong with you if you've never led someone to the Lord. Or if you've only okay with leading,
that experience.
If you've never shared that experience with someone, or if you've only done it once. And then I sat in my seat yesterday and I was like, sheesh, it was challenging, because I thought, when was the last time we pastors, we're in full-time ministry, when was the last time, besides for the people coming to the church for the altar call and you leading people to the Lord there, where have you led people outside of the circle that you're familiar with? And I want to say this as well.
And that's the Great Commission.
That's the Great Commission. And I want to say this as well, is that it's easy to get in a rut when you're in the same circle or the same cycle every single week, every single day, doing all the activities. Challenge yourself, you know, go out there and reach someone that needs Jesus. Speak, you know, I was so immature in my younger years that I would sit in Wimpy, and I would often do this. I was
just like turn or burn, baby.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Dry of
No wonder
braai.
not many came to Christ. I'd be like, you're going to hell, come.
But I just remember those beginning years, how we were so eager for God to use us as channels to touch people around us. We used to go to this place in Four Ways Mall called Bless You Books. And then we would go and read books for like 10 minutes. There was a coffee shop in there and we would have coffee. And we were just like waiting for God to speak to us through someone or walk out and be able to give someone a prophetic
share
word.
Jesus with someone.
And share Jesus with
We
someone.
were going to buy new Bibles and
It was so cool, remember?
we were so cool.
The days. Let's go to the mall to go find a new Bible.
And we do it like every Saturday. Oh, that's funny.
You know, it's awesome looking back and being able to see what the Lord has
We'd
done
go
in your
by
life.
McDonald's and look for someone and be like, God, lead.
We were convinced, you know, get a
And we would do it so
double
often.
cheeseburger meal, and we were convinced the Lord is telling us to go and buy a cheeseburger meal for someone at the robot or a homeless
but you know what
person.
we do? We say, and it wasn't always just hobos. That's the thing. It was just like we were like, God, lead us to someone that's hungry today, and we could just we were just. And it's funny now, but I mean, I feel like we should do it too. Is that we'd go buy like a Big Mac meal and we'd say, God, lead us, show someone that's hungry so that we can be the blessing today. And excuse me, we did that so often.
But you know what? That actually taught us obedience, even as insignificant we thought it was. It taught us to be obedient.
It seems silly now, but we were so hungry for him and more of him and to share him, and we were so zealous. And maybe yes, we lacked a lot of wisdom and stuff at that time, but we were like, we're going to share. If it was in a coffee shop, we'd go sit and we would do outreaches, and we were busy all the time, but we wanted to share with people. And then you get into the point where you sit where we are today, and you feel like you almost lose that zeal to share people. And I feel like that's the zeal that you need to get back to. And it's a choice. We made a choice. We used to be so exhausted. We used to be exhausted all the time because we were like, we're going to pray through the night tonight.
I also sometimes think that's a boldness that I feel, not our church, because we have evangelism and people are out ministering all the time. But it is a boldness that I feel like a lot of people lack to do, because that's the only way people are going to
But let me
reach
tell you
out.
this. I'm someone that I come across very confident in that. But I would have done better had I stood next to someone and learned how.
That's true.
And I was too embarrassed to do that. So it took me longer to want to go and show. But then I did come across a few people that would just share Jesus as best they could. And if they were wrong, at least they sowed a seed, you know? And so to me, if you can go just alongside someone, it's because something happened with our daughter. And she had to pray for people, and she was so unconfident afterwards, and she was overthinking, and mom's child overthinks it afterwards and whatever. And I just remember feeling that way, like I didn't know what I was doing. But when you go out of faith and you know the word and you kind of don't know, and I just remember feeling that way, and I just laughed, and I was like, TX, you know, we still get unconfident sometimes. Sometimes it was just not a good day at church, and it was just hard, and you know, people weren't responding. Or I'm not saying that we preach, but you know, when you pray for people and whatever. And I just remember that she has a zeal for God. And I thank God that I didn't want to bring up a pastor's kid. I wanted to bring up Tegan to be her. And not to, unfortunately, she is a pastor's kid. Not unfortunately, fortunately. But I wanted her to grab God on their own. And Brian too. And they kind of have, because Brian is just not fearful of anything. He'll go up to the shepherd then and say, do you know Jesus? And he's like 7. He's my height, but he's 7. Where Tegan is like, she thinks about things first. And the thing is, what we need to understand is that's not wrong. There's not one of them is wrong. It's different characters. And if you can form and shape and develop your character to be better. So I was just like, Tegan, you've got such a hunger for Jesus. You share him in any way that you can, and God will find you the way, and you'll mature that way. But if you're unconfident, go find someone to stand next to. Doesn't have to be me. Go find a youth leader and stand next to him and say, I'm not confident in praying right now. Can I just see how you do it? Because you, like, you know, we grow. Imitate me as I imitate Christ.
I think for us now, being in ministry, full-time ministry now, it's been awesome to notice what we lacked back then.
Yes.
And being able to implement it with the people around us now. Because there's so much that I think back then, because of a lack And it was our fault, a
Yeah, no,
lack
it is
of
our fault, sure.
mentorship and leadership.
Yeah, because it's your responsibility to find mentorship.
Exactly.
And it's your responsibility to follow up with that.
Yes.
It's not always the mentor, because a mentor can be very busy. But a mentor, and you imitate me as I imitate Christ. That means you need to find someone to imitate. It means you need when you've got the senior pastor of the church, we knew and we experienced how pure how pure in our first ministry, how pure he was. There was little things that it impacted me for the rest of my life. Like when we went to Israel and baptizing that lady, and how he looked away, but he would not let that one lady go. And I don't know why it makes me emotional, but that impacted me for the rest of my life. How he stood and he took time for us. And those things, those are the little things that I just took time. But it was our responsibility to get mentorship. Yeah. And we didn't know what that looked like then.
Yeah.
But now we know better. Now we can, and that is something I'm going to say Prophet does quite well, 100%. Is that he expects mentorship.
Yeah.
And he trains up disciples to disciple. And I must say that's something we've learned. So we can pass it on to the next generation, and they will do something better than we do. Yeah.
One of the questions that was asked that I wasn't sure if we should answer, but I'm going to, because a podcast is supposed to be a real conversation and raw. So one of the questions was asked is, can you share any supernatural experiences you've experienced as a Christian? A lot seems flaky these days. So I just want to say something. I came from a place where I didn't believe anything. I didn't believe in angels appearing. I didn't believe in supernatural things happening where people can go, oh, I saw this, I saw white lights, I saw an angel. Because to me, it all sounded dodge. And I think the Lord had to allow me to experience what I did supernaturally so that I knew that it was real. Because there are many, let me say this, there are many situations, Taryn and I can speak about, that supernaturally happened, that we've experienced together and that we experienced apart. One of the experiences I can share with you is that we went to a leadership meeting, and at the time we were driving a very old car, because that's when we lost everything. And we were driving an old Toyota Corolla. And I think Tegan was in the car and Brian was a baby.
Yes.
And we were driving on a road called Ondeckers. For those that are in.
That we had to wedge his baby because the seatbelt in the back wouldn't work. So we had to wedge his what do you call it?
Car chair
in between the chair and the chair. We had to literally make Alan drive as far back as he could to wedge the baby.
That just tells you the condition of the car, actually, that we were driving. So we were driving, and we were on Ondeckers Road. For those who know Johannesburg, South Africa, we were driving, and we were supposed to turn into a road called Mouton Road. And Taryn and I were driving, and we saw like a truck. It was a truck coming from the right-hand side that would basically drive into us as we've turned left. So we were turning left, and it was green for us to go, but this truck was coming at such a speed. You know, you sometimes can't explain to people that supernatural moment because everything happens so fast. So what had happened is we're driving, and we know we need to turn left. The next minute, it was like a white light filled our car. And we were then in the left-hand lane with no truck to be seen. We both looked at each other, and before I could speak, I said, it's like my spirit said, I need to know that this is legit. Because I saw these huge lights. I saw this white truck, and this truck was coming for us. And Taryn said, Alan, did you experience what I just experienced? And I said, no way. We both just experienced something supernatural, because a light filled the car. We can't even explain. It was like a spotlight. A bright spotlight filled the car. Our kids were in the car. Next minute, from one road to the left-hand side of this other road in Mouton Road, we are placed in this lane, and the truck is gone. There's no truck to be seen. And the significant thing about that is that she experienced the same thing I did at that moment. But what had happened before we left, Prophet Leon never really follows you to the car to walk you to the car and say bye.
There were too many people. Still people
there were
inside.
Too many people. We had all the leaders there. But he walked out this time with us, and he said to us, and it was weird because we also know him. So we were like, why is he following us to the car?
Because I turned around and he was there, and I was like, what is he doing here?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he said to me,
Drive
just
safe.
let me know when you're home, drive safe.
And we were like,
you never say this to
no,
us.
it's just the way it's always like, bye and all this. But
Yes.
the way he said, drive safe, we were both like,
We were both actually shocked. So we're driving
Yeah.
home thinking, okay, we just need to be aware of what's happening around us. Then the situation happened. The next morning, I messaged him and I said the most
we messaged
crazy.
him that night.
Oh, it was the evening.
It was around 11 o'clock because I'll never forget it.
Yes.
And I said, Alan, you need to ask him. You need to ask him, did he pray? Because we have just lost our minds.
Yeah, we thought we were going mad because of
Yes.
what we experienced.
I was completely convinced we had both completely lost it. Because from my experience, is it okay if I just...
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just used to speaking over Alan. From my experience, I looked and we were here and I saw these big square lights and I was like, Alan and Brian are going to die. That's the thoughts that crossed my mind. I said, God, Alan and Brian are going to die now. And it went, I just remember the thought, Alan and Brian are going to die now. And the next minute we not here anymore, we're here. And I was like, my first thoughts were, I have to ask Alan what just happened, and he needs to describe it to me. I'm not going to tell him what I've described. He needs to tell me in his words what just happened, because I am officially overtired. Something, I either fell asleep and I thought something, but your heart's pounding, and you always think that you're going to have this angel telling you, oh, there. It wasn't like that, because we freaked out. Like let me say, when I say freaked out, we weren't like, it was just like, I was like, Alan, you tell me now. You tell me what you experienced. I'm not going to tell you. He said, no, wait, hang on. Oh my word. You tell me. And I'm like, no. You are going to describe what just happened, because I need to know that I've not lost my mind. And I just, out of the things that we'll share now, that is definitely one of them I would, because it was one that just, it sounds so ludicrous.
It was the most insane experience to experience, because there I realized, the power of prayer, because when we messaged Prophet Leon, he just said, I felt led to pray for your protection, because the Lord said to me,
you're going to be in an accident.
You're going to be in a car accident. And I swear that night we realized we experienced something so heavenly and supernatural.
Also just shows you the power of prayer. And so when you feel, God's not going to come with a neon sign and say to you, pray for this person. But when you feel
the unction,
we call it the unction. So when you feel, like when someone crosses your mind, there's nothing wrong with going, whether it be your enemy, someone you don't like, or someone that you don't really speak to, message, pray. And I would say follow up with a phone call or message and just say, hey, you're in my heart and this is what I'm praying for. And they could be like, no, it's not true. That's the worst that can happen. But 9 times out of 10, I'd say I go as far as to say 8 times out of 10 guaranteed, that person is going to be like, I needed that right now. Or sure, I'm not going through it, but my mother is. I've just had it so much.
We've had so many experiences where we've experienced these type of things. I mean, for example, in 2022, I was on the N14 driving between 2 church services, our Centurion branch and our Krugersdorp branch in Johannesburg. And I was basically attempted jacked, pulled me over, fake cops pulled me over. And I remember in that moment driving, I was like, Lord, what is happening? Is this bad? And the Lord said to me, just drive. And because I started fearing, that nullified me hearing what God was actually saying. And I pulled the car over. Long story short, they stole stuff from me.
All our money. Everything emptied our account.
They emptied our account. And that next morning, it was my son's birthday, Brian. I think he was turning 5.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, he was turning 5. And we wanted to buy him a Nintendo Switch. Anyway, God was faithful. We ended up getting him the Nintendo Switch. And that morning of his birthday, I felt like I was getting an anxiety attack. But I didn't want to have this thing in front of the kids, and it's his birthday. So I went to the bathroom, and I'm not going to get into detail with regards to what I experienced, because a lot of people will judge it on social media. But I've never experienced a physical encounter with an angel like I did that day. And I was the person that would say, why would you experience an angel? That day, I experienced something that
Definitely a turning point for you.
it was a turning point in my walk with the Lord, because I realized something that day, that the spiritual is more real than the natural is. And we sometimes are naive.
But it's also, you realize that even though that happened to you, and I just say hijacking because, I mean, maybe they didn't get the car or kill you, but, you know, what was funny is that they stole everything, and they didn't take certain things, like they didn't take his laptop bag with his laptop, but they took all our money. And it was because he had cash on him, and he had, which it's funny because he never carries cash anymore. It was just that point he carried cash, and cleared out our accounts, which was fine, because God really looked after us. But it just shows you how God is in the detail for your life as well. Because as much as that was something that Alan absolutely feared, and God took him, he protected him in that moment. God changed your life for the better with that opportunity. We'll call it an opportunity. It wasn't an opportunity, but we'll say it wasn't, because it was an opportunity for you to turn against God, or the opportunity to run with it. And look, I think the thing that Alan did wrong at that point was he acted like nothing happened for a long time. But in his sleep, he was screaming, and it was like a bit hectic at home. And he would scream in his sleep, and I'm trying to hold him, and he's trying to fight me, and it was quite. But he got help, and he went to a therapist. And so, if you need it, go for it. There's nothing wrong with it. We sometimes, as Christians, don't get the help that we need, and just believe. And sometimes God has blessed someone enough to help you psychologically, you know. And but God was in the detail, and He has brought so much good out of that one thing. So much good. And it was a supernatural experience for everybody, because yes, did Alan take a time to heal from being fearful? Yes. But did Alan handle it by taking it head on? I mean, a lot of people questioned whether it really happened, but I knew it happened because I was the one holding him down, screaming in his sleep, and he would wake up not knowing it happened. But it was like, I mean, as a wife, I just knew God, and I just knew you just pray and get him help. Anyway, my point was that I'm scrolling a little bit again, but my point was, in that moment, I knew, even looking back now, I see that God took so much good out of that, and He turned it out for the better good.
100%.
I mean, one day we walked into a shop, and you saw one of the people that had
I recognized. So what had happened is the one guy had a scar from the bottom of his eye going down his cheek, and I recognized the scar on the person's face.
Yeah.
And
it was, to me, it was a moment, and I could see my husband is not the lightest person, especially in summer. He goes pretty dark, and not that we're just talking about the color of your skin, but for him to just go as pale as he did, I was like, something's vastly wrong. And he just turned around, he took the kids, and the kids like kind of knew something was wrong, but the guy had recognized Alan and walked out, but he couldn't react. The guy couldn't react because he was in uniform, and unfortunately there was no way for us to even prove, but we could pray.
Yeah.
And Alan, so even in that moment, he could see the person walk away, actually doing better. You know?
God, it's one of the examples where God worked that specific situation out for the better good. And yes, it wasn't His will that happened, but if I look at what actually happened because of what happened and what I experienced, I would not actually take it back. I wouldn't have experienced what I did supernaturally and prophetically.
You know, even when they were telling him they're going to take him now to a place where we, you know, in South Africa, we know if you get taken into a place, you're not coming out alive. And he said, no, I've got to go to another service at the church. And that made them get out the car and stand around the car and discuss things. And I always said to Alan, you know, I think the fact that he said, look, I'm a pastor, I need to go to the next church, I need to sing, I need to do, it confused them so much that it made them let him go. Yes, they had cleaned out our accounts, but God was so faithful that He supplied for Brian's birthday. He supplied the need that you had in the time.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so much has come out of that. But anyway.
So this is leading into the next question. How do you navigate seasons of dryness? I want to answer and say, when people speak about seasons, I go, there's winter, summer, spring, autumn. And I have to remind myself that it does change.
Yes.
You know, if I look back on things that we've experienced, I always remind myself that when I go through certain things, that you're okay today, which means you came out of what you went through.
Yes.
Even when you couldn't see what you were going through or see out of what you were going through. The other thing I want to say is that regardless of the dryness and feeling like God is, you know, not faithful, that he's missing. I mean, we've experienced that recently, if we can be real. And you just have to keep going. I don't have an answer to say how. All I want to say is get up, walk, take a step forward, take another step forward, take another step forward, and just keep going, regardless of what's happening on around you.
Yeah, Pastor Alan is looking at me. I want to tell you, I can speak 2 hours on this situation, because the one thing I've learned is that you are not going to grow your faith when you feel him all the time, where everything is hunky-dory. You're going to grow faith when you have to make the decision to trust him. You know, Proverbs 3 verse 5-6, it talks about trusting him. That trust there is having the confidence in God that he will and he can. Having confidence in God. So it's not feeling like God is going to do everything. It's going, God, I actually have the confidence that you can and you will. You know, I think sometimes when you're in the dry place, you've got to also determine what the dry place is. Because if it is someone treating you badly, that's not always necessarily a dry place. You can choose. Like, you know, we've been teaching about how we've been learning in our church and the sermons that have been going out about boundaries. And not a lot of people like boundaries, but, you know, even Pastor Alan and I were speaking, we are going to set up boundaries with in certain areas of our life. I wouldn't say certain people, but it'll be certain areas, okay? Just because also to teach us more.
Yeah.
Okay? To work through a dry place. You know, when we say you're going through a dry season, there's a time associated with that. That is what's powerful, is that you can be so confident that your season will come to an end. This time of feeling so bad will come to an end. But the best thing you can do is your attitude change. And, you know, I'm not always great at not looking sad. I'm one of those people that, you know, someone will just go boo and I can cry quick and all of those. But I've come to realize that that's okay. It's okay to be someone that's sensitive, but it's not okay to be ruled by your emotion. But emotions are used by God so that we can feel and start empathizing with other people. This is what I want to say. If you are going through a dry place, know that there's a hope for you tomorrow because God is already in it. He's the great I am and he's outside of time. So for you, your promise is that he will never leave nor forsake you. So that promise is not that you feel far away from him. You will go to points that you feel far away from him. But your promise is that he's never going to leave you. He's never going to forsake you. That means he is never going to go, whether you feel him or not. He doesn't say, I'm never going to leave you nor forsake you. You're going to feel me at all times. No, his promise is that he's always there. He's always going to be there. So your promise is that you can, no matter how you feel, no matter what you're going through, is that he's there, even when you don't feel him. And let me tell you, there are times that you're going to feel annoyed with God. And a lot of people will make it out to be that you're wrong. But, you know, Jacob wrestled with God. He wrestled with the angel of the Lord.
Yeah.
He didn't say, no, I went there and I humbly bowed my knee and went to this. Yes, and that's good. And you should be humble before God. But sometimes humility looks like, you know, I'm actually feeling annoyed with you. And I'm not saying that it's good. And I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for that. But going to God and saying, God, I feel annoyed with you, but I know it's not you. I know that you're a good father. I know that you've got a plan for my future, but I don't see it right now. I'm asking for your help. And then align yourself with people that are going to help you. Because that is where it's important. You will get out of a place where you have a man going, hey, you need to get off stop that. Don't have that attitude. But also not someone that's going to be abusive towards you. So you need to find that line and you need to be led by God to find people in your life that you can associate you with. Because I know I've got friends that never tell me what I want to hear. There's people that are not in our church that when I speak to them, they don't they don't come into me and say, oh, Taryn, oh, shame, you're just so sweet all the time. They go, no, you are with God, but you sort yourself out. You're offended right now. You have fallen for the bait of Satan. You get on your knees, you go humble yourself and you pray. Okay, that's obviously not exactly the words that they use. A dry season is a season because there's a time and a place that God is going to take you through. And I'm not saying God is going to tempt you, but God will allow you not to feel him, because are you going to support him? Are you going to believe in God? Are you going to tell people about Jesus when you feel the worst? Or, you reap what you sow. I've always said, if I feel I have the need for love, I will message people in a loving manner, or I'll phone people and say, hey, I was just thinking about you, because that's what I needed. Do you know that I always walk away feeling changed? Not because someone phoned me back, but because I gave out what I needed. And it's like God healed me in that point, at that moment. And I've always said that, also know that even when you're on a high, there's a time associated with that. So Paul talks about how he's learned to be content in every situation. And that is where faith is built, is to be content in every situation. And that's an attitude. That is what you choose to be. So yes, do I get it right all the time? Absolutely not. But I do try and live by, even if to others it looks like I'm faking it, it's me trying to change my attitude and allow God to do what he needs to. Do I get everything right? I know that I don't, but I'm trying. God says you must seek first. What does seek mean? It's to look, to try find. So when you try and seek righteousness and you seek him first, all those things will be added to you.
Very good. I just want to say something, is that you will, without this sounding wrong, it's in the valleys where you actually really know who God is.
100%.
More than the mountaintops.
Exactly.
It's in those valleys that you actually know the character of God, who he is, that
you choose.
Yes, and it's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say something, is that Jacob, when he wrestled with God, we all think that when we wrestle with God, it's such a bad season and time to go through.
It's faith.
But it's faith. Mm-hmm. And what you don't realize is that you actually have connection with the Lord, because you're wrestling with him.
Yes.
You're touching. And sometimes we forget that. You might feel dry, but what you actually don't understand is you're wrestling him, which means you've got contact with him.
Relationship.
It's relationship.
Yes.
The other thing I want to say is that if I can tell you on our relationship with the Lord and in the seasons that we went through, one thing I learned is that you have to be consistent.
Yeah.
In trials, be consistent. In transitions, be consistent. Mm-hmm. In being accused, be consistent. Sure. In being slandered and gossiped about, handled, mistreated, be consistent. Mm-hmm. Because that consistency keeps you. If I look back, and there's many instances that I had to go through, whether it be for learning or whether it be unfair, the only thing I knew how to do is get up and be consistent. The thing I tell Taryn often is, I say, when we're going through things that are either unfair or just unjust or life, I tell her, we just have to show up. We need to get up, and all we need to do is trust God, because God at the end of the day works everything out.
There's something I've learned in the last couple of I would say the last year and a half, because I don't know if I spoke about it in the last podcast, but I went through just such a dry time and I was so tired, and yes, I should have reached out more, but I think it was so important for me to learn, and I didn't see the lesson then, but I do see the lesson now. And I realized that we let go, and yes, we have the privilege of learning revelation and these amazing things, but we let go of the simple things of God, like the simple scriptures. There's a reason why there's a scripture on every flower, bloom, and sign, and flower bloom is the same thing for those that don't understand Afrikaans. Flower is bloem in Afrikaans. Is these little pretty pictures that get sent around and whatever, or every doorpost, or I don't know, sticker. There's a reason why we see Joshua 1 verse 9. There's a reason why he's telling us that he'll go ahead of the way and prepare the way for us. There's a reason why that Proverbs 3 verse 5, that trust him with all your heart. There's a reason why that it's out there. There's a reason why that there's Jeremiah 29 verse 11, because God is like, as much as it gets repetitive, so we lose the impact of those scriptures, But there's a reason why people use those scriptures. It's because it's powerful. The scripture will never leave nor forsake you.
And that's something I want to say is that, in the season when we lost everything, and I'm even thinking back to 2010 when I left my previous job, or when I lost my previous job, just got married, like a month later, I get let go.
Yeah.
But what I want to say with regards to that is God allowed me in that season to grow
Yes.
the most in my walk with Him. Because there I learned that you have to stand on the Word of God.
Yeah.
You have to stand on His promises. You have to stand on what He says. And I learned in that season that His Word is true.
Yes.
I learned that you can stand on His Word. And I also learned that you need to contradict what you're going through and the lie of the enemy with His Word.
Yes. And, one thing I've learned about the Word, and this is something that I thought about last year, it was just something so practical, but it made so much sense to me. And maybe it'll make sense to one person, even if one viewer watches this, but maybe one person will understand, is that His Word says in Psalm 119, verse 105. That's also something we see on every keyring, is that His Word is a light unto our path and a lamp unto our feet. And so I was just sitting there pondering on that scripture one day. I just thought, God, I don't want to hear about it this more. Just this one scripture. And it was just one of those things where I went down a rabbit hole. And I just thought, if you've got confusion in your life, that one scripture will teach you why. It's because you don't have the Word to light out your path.
That's so true.
It doesn't mean you have to know. We've got this, a lot of Christians have this, God is going to talk to me now, spiritual hamdalalam. Oh, Hosea, this says. No, I don't even know why I have my Bible on my lap, but I do. This is my little one that I carry with me everywhere, but whatever. You need to read the Word to feed your spirit.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to go in. You don't have to repeat exactly what you've got, but you should be reading the Word every single day, because in that, your path will be lit up. In that, you'll learn, and suddenly it'll make sense. Suddenly, you'll hear a teaching and you'll be like, oh, wait, I just read that. Or I read that 3 months ago. Oh, yes, I know about that. Oh, this person's going that. Oh, but this story in the Bible shows us how God can work it out. And in reading the Word, you will change. You will grow, and you will know His voice more.
It's powerful. I have a question here, and I want to get to it before we close. Can you share a funny moment in ministry? So I have got two.
I got 500.
Yeah, I've got two that I remember right now. I was leading worship at Rhema Church. Everyone knows that's a big church. It was probably in 2006. With
we did
a bunch of
thing with
other
the
worship leaders. Yes.
Our church and Rhema's church did a joint thing with the youth, and we went there.
Yeah. So I'm busy leading the song called Healer, because I have to say with a her, because Taryn always says to me that I say words funny, healer.
Healer. He doesn't say healer. He goes healer.
So I'm on I'm on the platform, and Taryn is showing me. Now I'm looking at the camera. She's going like this. So now I'm thinking, I'm thinking, A, my zip is open, and B, something is showing. So now I'm in worship, and I'm turning my back to the congregation, and I'm trying to look down at my zip because I'm wondering, is my zip open? Am I exposed? What am I doing? And I saw nothing was open. So I ended up worshiping, but meanwhile, she was telling me to put my mic towards my mouth.
Okay, first of all, I thought I was being a good girlfriend. I think we were dating at the time. And I must say, when he turned around, I was just like, what is this guy doing? Can he just lift his mic? And he only told me once he got off the stage. It was so funny because so many things happened that day. Because if you remember, our pastor actually rolled off
fell off the stage. I remember.
Oh, man, that's so funny. But so, yes, that did happen. I was trying to communicate. I've obviously we've learned how to communicate. I think that also comes with the relationship and doing this, is that even today, even in my responsibility, I will watch Alan and he's singing all the time. Yes, do I get lost in the moment? 100%. But I will still watch him to be able to be that support to him in praise and worship. And I'm making myself sound amazing, but I've messed up a lot, just so you know. And in that moment, I thought I was showing him in the right way. Lift your mic up. And he was seeing that I was saying your zip is down. You need to lift your zip. But it just also shows you what miscommunication can do.
I think one of the other moments for me was I was praying for someone recently, and I had a fisherman's in my mouth.
Fisherman's is like peppermint.
And that's a peppermint. And I ended up praying for this person, and I ended up spitting
The peppermint shot
the
out.
peppermint, and it shot out on their face. That was pretty funny for me. I remember I actually couldn't continue praying because
We were laughing so
I
much.
ended up laughing so much. The person probably thought, what the hell is going on?
No, well, they weren't offended. They didn't leave. It wasn't like, I've got to think now. I mean, from me, in the campus that we serve in, there's like leveled steps, and I did a good roll down those stairs a few times, trying to rush to do something, doing things in Martha instead of just being a Mary, and rushing around. And I've rolled down the stairs. We have had people along the line having to sit down because they were laughing so much at me. I can't tell you. I've had a lot.
We laugh a lot in ministry, just so that everyone knows.
I've had, it's like, or, one of the people that I am close to, they would make a joke before the service. And then something in the service gets said and we sit giggling. I mean, I'll tell you, for like one instance is the media team. And you always see we make jokes about the media team. But this one girl has got the phenomenal ability to walk on her haunches and go across the screen. And we've always noticed it because, like, I mean, have you ever tried to walk like that?
Wait, I know you're talking about
but
without
listen,
you even saying that. That's crazy.
So someone, like, I don't want to mention their name, but it was someone that I'm pretty close to, made the joke and said, look, it's Pac-Man, and she'd go, so now, if I tell you, I mean, that's not a funny situation where I made a fault or something, but now every time this woman walked past, all I could see in my mind was, and this, I mean, and I don't even know why that's come up, but I want to tell you, I've had a lot of stories. I've had a lot of, I think if there's something, like Pastor Adam always say, you clumsy, and I'm like, stop speaking that over me. Words have got the power of life and death. Because if anyone is going to trip on the stage, it will probably be me. Or like, and you see, he's saying yes. But so I actually can't isolate one situation.
There's been many with
But
Taryn.
I want to tell you, I have a lot. Like getting up there, practicing a name, and getting up there, and it's like you have to say the name now, and you've gone blank. So I just in front of the whole crowd go, it's whom you can all read what the word says there, and carry on. And like and I mean, it's not professional, but I'm not,
Just so that everyone knows, we're not perfect. We can joke. We have a lot of fun in ministry.
I think if we didn't have a sense of humor, Ellen and I would never have made it.
That's so true.
I think one of my best things in our relationship, I can honestly say, is we laugh a lot together.
We do.
Yeah.
We do laugh a
I've
lot.
noticed that not everyone laughs like that. And I'm like, you're missing out.
Okay, I'm going to go into the next question.
Okay.
This is now worship related. How did you first get involved with worship ministry? So,
Well, I'm married. I'm just joking.
So I first, obviously, I was singing at a very young age, and
His benefit is that he could sing.
yes,
Yeah.
so the benefit of I don't want to get into that. So I used to train vocal training with a lady named Molly Kelly, and she's a music producer or vocal producer. And I remember going to the first church that I went to, which was Little Falls Church in Little Falls in Johannesburg. And I remember my sister taking me to vocal lessons at the church that day because there was a small house on the premises, and Molly was doing vocal lessons
training?
there. Can you
my
believe it,
soul,
at that
yeah.
small house?
Yeah.
And I remember that day getting into the car, and this is why you must be careful of the power of your words. I never even attended, this is funny, I thought about it the other day. I never ever attended a service yet. But I went to the church, I did vocal lessons with Molly there with a group of people, got into my sister's car, I remember her Toyota Taz, and
Just she had a good sister.
she asked me, so how was singing lessons? And I remember joking with her and saying, no, the pastor asked me to come sing at his church, not knowing what they do at the church. And I remember there, and then I was actually speaking a word over my life and prophesying over my life without me realizing what I was actually saying.
Do you remember the joking with me?
What did I joke with you?
You said to me, So I'm singing from this Sunday.
Yes,
And I
you're
was
right.
like, what? Wow. And he's like, after like a while, he's like, I'm just joking. And I was like, oh. You
I
know,
actually
like,
remember that. I joked with Taryn. I said,
I'm
no, they
true
asked
as
me to
Bob.
sing. And actually, that Sunday, what happened is the worship leader asked me to come join them for an item. And
Mm-hmm.
I had never sung, obviously, at the church. And I just joined the youth ministry that time. And we had just started doing band rehearsals and Friday
Mm-hmm.
evening services at the youth. And I'd never showed interest to be a part of the main team. And I remember sitting there and I'm like, wow, this team is huge. They sound so good. And they said to me, come, you need to come sing Heart of Worship on the platform. And I was
Oh,
like,
my
when?
word, yeah.
And they were like, now. And then I had to just quickly do a sound check with them before the service started. And I remember doing the item then. And obviously, worship for me started with being in the youth ministry that I was at. You know, you'll obviously, what you're gifted with, if there's a gift that you have, God will use that because he wants to use that gift for his glory. If you can sing, if you can play an instrument, God gave you that gift and he wants to use that wherever you're planted. And I remember from then, it was 2006 or 2006, I think. I started worshiping in the church a week after I did that item. And I said, I want to be involved. I want to be involved in this. I love worship.
Consistency.
And that's the thing. It was consistency. I remember
That's
from
one
then.
thing about you is that it didn't matter. You had this gift, and whether Alan has sung, his testimony about his chest, and he sung when he's literally recovering from bronchitis, where he's got nothing, he'll go and he'll do, and it's maybe not the best thing, but he's always been consistent, and whether he wants to or not.
What I want to say with regards to that is that I made myself available.
Yes.
But B, I also pursued it. I contacted Marie Watson at the time and I said, I really feel led to want to be involved with this team. And
you were in band practice for like 3 months before you were on the stage.
yes.
You know, look, so there's a way, but also if you can't sing, learn an instrument. I'm just saying, like, use what you're strong at, because don't try and be something you're not. Prophet Leon will say, he always say, go where your grace is. If God doesn't tell you to move to Cape Town, don't move. Always allow God to use you with what you're strong at. I'm not going to join the worship team.
It's true.
It's true.
Very true. Yes, Lord.
Yes, Lord. But to me, I've always been good at, no, let me not say it like that. I'm not good at singing. I'm good at mimicking a song if I need to. And I love to sing. But I truly know that I do not have a gift. I know that I'm not gifted I don't know what a harmony is, or I don't tell me I must sing soprano. You can explain it to me. I can't hear it in my head. I can't hear what to sing when Alan's singing. I can't do those things. But it doesn't make me feel less.
The thing is, with what Taryn is saying is very true, because people have this perception that, I don't have the gift, but I want to
sing.
I want to sing.
I want the platform.
And we have to be real. And we have to say to you, no, you can't sing.
You actually can't. No.
I can't give you a voice box.
But you can go sing amongst the brethren. That's no problem.
Or in the shower.
Yeah.
And what you said now is very important, is I never desired the platform. It was not something that I wanted. I didn't desire a spotlight. I didn't desire a microphone. Those that know me know that I hate speaking in front of people. Or I hated speaking in front of people. That's why even you listening to this podcast today is also a miracle in itself, because it's something that I didn't want to do. All I knew was to focus on the Lord and seek Him. That's all I knew in the beginning.
So weird, because I never knew I'd have anything constructive to say.
All we knew
it sounds so ridiculous.
before serving God is we knew just to know God. And in that, God promoted. In that, God gave us ministry to be involved with.
And you have seasons where you are actually, you'll have seasons of serving someone else's vision. And also know that sometimes we're like a worship leader is generally a supportive ministry. You're there to support someone that is ushering the word out and giving the word out to the people.
The head of the ministry. Yes.
You don't have to be the head of the ministry.
I think sometimes I can speak with regards to worship leading, is that if the Lord wanted you to be the senior pastor
You'd
and
be
run
it.
everything, He would have made you the senior pastor. If you're a worship leader, you are submitting to the vision that God has entrusted to someone.
And that's something that we get taught a lot, is that if you call to be the 2RC, be the best 2RC. Don't go out and make your own ministry and think, oh, because I'm so good at that. Go because your grace will be there.
Yeah.
And there is nothing wrong with being more in a supportive role. We as Christians have this thing where I'm going to be the number one evangelist and I'm going to go get millions of souls. Really? Have you got one person saved in the last week?
You know what? With what you're saying is so powerful. David was tending to his father's sheep.
Yep.
God found him, overlooked all his brothers,
Gave
and
him the
found
vision.
David.
Gave him the vision and he still served.
Exactly. And he served. So wherever you're at today, serve wherever you're at and look after God's people.
But
God
also,
will find you.
You don't have to serve to gain something.
Exactly.
God will give you because, you know, God will give you when you want to make God's kingdom work. So if you find yourself and being called to a ministry, if they call you to clean the toilets, do it.
That's what I've always said to
I
people.
mean, I still clean toilets. And I'm not trying to say that I'm anything great. I'm not. But I find myself available. I want to make it work. Have I had the best attitude every single time? Definitely not. I mean, I'm just human.
So what I say to worship leaders is that if you can't be found faithful with the toilet brush, how can you be found faithful with a microphone?
Exactly. And, you know, there's a perception. Having the mic is a perception of I'm giving God's glory. But that's not true.
Yeah,
Giving God glory is the life you live outside of the mic.
that's right.
It's every day. That is 10% of what your relationship with Him is.
Yeah.
It's showing what God has given you for other people. But you can be the worst person in this world and still be a good worship leader. And let me tell you, the one thing is you might have a bad character and you might have things that are wrong in your life. But when your heart is pure, because a bad character and having a pure heart is two different things. And your character will always be built. Always. You'll always be built. No matter how far and close you get to God, your character, you'll always have character building. And that is what is so awesome about God, is there's always things to deal with. But, you know, you can have an attitude and a pure heart before Him, and God can move mountains because of that purity that you have. And purity doesn't always look like, okay, I didn't mess up this week. Purity goes like, God, I just want to give more of you. And, you know, to me, obviously when you first get saved, you want a mic and you want to go there. But the closer I've got to God, the more I've realized that it's just never been about that. It's never been about preaching. It's never been about singing. I mean, have I ever thought I'm going to be a worship leader? I've maybe wanted to for 2% of my Christianity. But I love singing. I will sing out loud in the house. I don't even care what everyone thinks. And, you know.
Can I just testify to that? The one day, Taryn's singing and I'm like, oh, her word, she's irritating me. She's singing so loud. Her voice is
and I'm not worried about
me,
singing loud. I'll
and
sing
she
loud.
doesn't care.
No.
But the Lord said to me, you can have the most beautiful voice and still sound the ugliest to my ears because your heart is not right. And it's something that I think for me personally is I don't get swayed by talent. Because you can feel if someone knows God. You can feel the weight in the person's voice. You can feel it's the one example I always reference to is Darlene Check, where she said she came onto the platform in 2007, and I know I spoke about this before, but it's the first person I ever felt, her and Kerry Job, when they were here. The first people I felt like when they walk onto the platform, what they're stepping into, their relationship with God demands that His presence be there. Darlene walked onto the stage, and it's the first worshiper that I experienced in 2007, where she walked on and you literally felt as if God walked on.
Yes. And, you know, she wasn't swayed by 5,000 people being there, or however many were there, maybe 7,000, I don't know.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, wow. But we learned such a lesson seeing her in 2000. I thought it was 2008, but I mean, it could be 2007, even 2006. But we learned such a lesson because we were so humbled we were so humbled by how humbled she is, her humility before God. And she knows what she carries, and she walks with that, and she learns from that. And to this day, when you hear her songs, and like she just let out an album where she's singing with her daughter, and I just cried because I was just like, what a turnaround after cancer, after everything, that this woman will go out and be a pastor. Because as much as you go and look at her life, she could have overtaken the world, but it was still more important, you know, not that I know her personally, but I'm just saying this is what I've seen and the example I've seen in her. And this is someone randomly in South Africa that it's taken and seen. I once saw her, and what I learned from her is that it was more important for her relationship with God. And if God said, go and touch those people that you will never get credit for, you should do it. And would you, if you, for the rest of your life, had to do it without anyone ever seeing it again, but still that is what God required of you, would you still?
Yeah. Yeah.
If God took everything away from you, would you still serve Him? What would that look like to you?
I say that often to people. I say, especially singers and worship people, I say, if God took the band away, which you play, and if you don't need to sing, serve by singing, what would then serving look like to you?
What would your worship be?
What would your worship be?
Yeah.
Matt Redman said that when he wrote Here I Am to Worship, a Heart of Worship. I can't remember which artist said it, but he said that's how the song came up. When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come. And that's what worship is. One of the questions that I was asked is, what has been the most significant moment of worship for you? And I don't have a significant moment, because every single Sunday is significant for me. And significant why? Because who are we that we can lead people in worship or create an atmosphere of worship for people to encounter God, and then seeing people encounter God while you worship, and see them cry, see them encounter Him, see them getting delivered, seeing how God moves at certain moments in a service. I can't picture one significant moment, because every time that happens is significant.
Yes.
I can never get familiar with God just coming into a service and touching people and be like, oh, you know, you just walked in. I can't.
Because even in those times where, like, you know, there's times that Alan's gone like, I didn't feel anything, you know, was it okay? And it's not often that he gets insecure. But it will, there is not one time that he's not gone, someone phoned him and said, look, you know, God really touched me when you sang this. And it like that is, it just humbles you. I want to just say to you that, you know, the other day we were going on a walk with our children, and we heard this one tree, and it was a pine tree, I think. And you could hear the leaves are not round, they're like spikes, and they were going shh. And I looked up, and Alan said to me, Tay, you look up at that, and do you know that the tree is worshiping God right now? And I was like, wow. And I just looked, and I was like, sheesh. You know, we forget to see that it's in everything, you know, worship's there. Yeah.
It's actually powerful. When I looked at the tree, and why Taryn is saying that is, I looked at the tree, and the tree was creating a sound. And God just reminded me.
That was that.
God reminded me that, you know, even that sound is worship to Him, because that's His creation. And that's what we've been created
and that's
for.
In the middle of nowhere, just on a walk. There's no previous conversation.
It was just such a powerful thing that God showed us randomly on a walk with our kids on a Monday, how God would show us that's worship.
It's funny because someone said to me yesterday, asked me, does Pastor Alan sing when he's at home? I was like, I'm a soul all the time. And I said to them, you know, and this is not something I say in front of you all the time, or actually ever, but you know, there's no better privilege to me than when I am upstairs or I'm doing something, and Alan will go play the piano and sing, and he will just sing, and he'll just sing, and sometimes it's just free worship, and sometimes, you know, is he the best piano player? No. But in those moments, no, I'm not even criticizing you, just listen, is that it's always sound like the best song I've heard, because he will, that's when you see his heart for worship, is the when we're alone and no one else can hear it, but he's still worshiping, and he's still singing, and he's still showing God what he feels. And that happens a lot.
And I think it's funny that you say that, because the next question was, how do you make sure you cultivate worship beyond just the music?
Sure.
To me,
Relationship.
it's relationship, but I cannot worship on a Sunday if I don't have worship beyond a Sunday. I always say to people,
that's
as
good.
cliched as what it is, Monday to Saturday should be you should be worshiping. A Sunday should just be an overflow when you get on a stage, and it should be an overflow of what you do every single day. So cultivating worship beyond a Sunday shouldn't even be a question, because it should be something that you do every single day.
Yeah,
It
what
should
you
be
said.
something that you live. You know, a congregation doesn't want a person. Let me say this: a congregation doesn't want a worshiper who they themselves don't worship.
Yeah.
Then you're not a worshiper, you're an entertainer. One thing with our worship teams is that we've cultivated is that I can't worship with a group of people on a Sunday if I haven't worshipped with them myself alone. So at rehearsals, yes, it's important to be constructive, but I want to ask people that are in worship that listen to this is, how many times do you go into rehearsal and you just put worship on and worship with the people that you worship with on a Sunday? Regardless of it being professional people, paid musicians, or singers, or whatever the case may be, how often do you get to a place where you yourself worship with your team, so that the worship that happens on a Sunday is not out of a place of entertainment and clinical, but it's out of a place of real worship? And I sometimes think that's what we forget when we're in worship teams, is that it can become so programmed and structured that even the rehearsals you forget that. It's important to have that family and community before just getting together on a Sunday. It's something that I've cultivated within our teams as well. It's very, very important, because if I don't have that with you and we don't do that, then what happens on Sundays is not real worship. The last question, because I see the time, how do you balance between leading people in worship and experiencing worship yourself?
Sure.
And I think the question is basically the same as the other one. I want to say is that you have to make sure that you have a relationship with the Lord, because what do you give out? I can't pour out of a place that I don't have. I can't give to people something that I myself don't have inside of me. So if I'm pouring from a cup of emptiness, the worship is going to be stale. I thought the other day, I can't be offended when leadership says to me, worship feels like nothing, because I can guarantee you that most of the times that there's been a situation like that, it's because I haven't prioritized my worship privately or my relationship privately with the Lord.
Secret place.
And that's where everything is birthed. The secret place is where everything is birthed. The intimacy. Life comes from intimacy. So
the secret is a secret place.
The secret is the secret place. Everything is birthed from intimacy. If you look at the natural, life is formed when there's intimacy between a husband and a wife. So is it with worship and leading people in worship. If you do not have the intimacy with the Lord in the week, or in your relationship with the Lord, regardless of what that looks like. I'm not talking about being religious. I'm not talking about praying 8 hours a day. But if there's nothing going on, then nothing's going to go on a Sunday in the atmosphere when you have to lead worship, or you have to navigate an atmosphere in worship, or create an atmosphere for God's people to encounter Him. And God holds that responsibility, that it's high. If you want to be a leader, or a worship leader, you have that responsibility to make sure that you create that moment for God
100%.
to encounter His people. And if that doesn't happen, I remember there was once where the Lord said to me, Alan, you're in the way. I couldn't do what I wanted to do because you were in the way. And, there's many times where I have to do heart surgery, and even standing on stage, there's times where I, on the platform, go through things that are going on in my heart, because I never, ever want to be at the place where I'm in the way of what God wants to do, that my ears are blocked because of circumstances or life that I can't hear or navigate where God wants to go in a service or in worship. And that's important.
You're not responsible for what people think of you, but you are responsible for your relationship with God. And you are responsible for your character and who you are and how you get discipled and how you grow and what your character looks like. So, I think being in the worship world, if I do say so myself, is you learn to see who's got relationship and who's got performance. And it's not to say that, we've never been at the point where we're performing. We have, but we've learned. When I say we, it's just because I'm alongside him. And I think, the one thing that I did maybe right is that I always felt that my ministry would not be me, Taryn. It would always be complementary to Alan's worship, because that was always my biggest desire, was to get him to where he needed to be, and continuously for me to get him to where he needs to be. And, there's been times where I'm the one saying, get up and go. And what are you doing? Or like, what are you doing in worship? Like, and I'm not saying that I'm reprimanding my husband, but I'm supporting him in the times that he doesn't feel he's got anything. And because everyone goes through that. If you tell me you don't go through that, you're a liar. And that's where, if as a wife, your husband is a worship leader, or husband, if your wife is a worship leader, it's the little things that you can support them in, knowing that their sounds funny. I mean, I have not got gifted in that, but I try. I try to say, oh, he's peaking, or this, or the sound guy is at least very nice to me now, because he sees that I'm trying. But it's to put the water down when he needs that. I know he's going to need water when Alan sings. So I put a water down, and it's not because I'm like, oh, this little Christian wife. No, because I don't want him to have to ask me for water again, but I also want him to do the best he can. And if you can always be supportive in that, but I think humility is a huge key. And humility doesn't look like someone that's a pushover, and that's timidity. Timidity is a lie, and it's really not from God. But humility is straight from God and out of him. It's exactly who it is. Humility is just knowing who you are in Christ, and actually being humble enough to know that God doesn't need you, but he wants to use you. And what a privilege is that it's not even about you. It's that he wants you.
Who would have thought we had so much to say in this session today? Thank you for joining me today, babe.
So welcome.
I appreciate it. I just want to say thank you to everyone that's watched this podcast. I have a special interview that's probably happening in the next 2 weeks. But please don't forget that my new album will be available on all digital platforms on the 27th of September. Please also don't forget to subscribe to this channel, click on the notifications bell, like the podcasts, and please comment, interact with me. I'd love to see what you have to say about today, about the previous podcasts if you have not watched them. And
do I need to come on here again?
Yes, and
kidding,
tell us if Taryn needs to come on here again, which I can guarantee you will definitely happen.
That was a joke, for real.
Probably next week already.
No.
But I just want to thank you guys, and we'll see you soon.